Well, hi everyone. Thanks so much for having us this morning. It's pretty early over here in the States, so I think we're ranging from about 4:30 to 7:30 in the morning right now. So please bear with us if we're a little bit slow to get going. So we are all members of the ArchaeoGaming Collective, which we will obviously be talking a lot about this morning and giving you sort of an overview about our community here. But my name is Christiana Krupa, so we can just introduce ourselves first so you guys know who's who at least. My name is Christiana. I'm one of the founders of the collective. So um, when we talk about this community, just as some very basic background, we have developed a Discord server. So when we talk about the Archeo Gaming Collective or the community broadly, usually we're talking about the server. And so we have quite a large, at this point, Discord server that is made up of people who either are from a scholarly perspective or just from a general interest or fun sort of perspective that are interested in the intersection of archaeology and video games. And so we put together that server in summer of 2020 when everything got shut down and none of us could go to the field or go to conferences or do our usual kinds of networking anymore. And so the server itself has existed for, it is now in its third year, which is very exciting. We just hosted our third online conference, which is another one of the things that we're going to be talking about. So um, that's just a little bit of background about myself. My real life work is in repatriation work. I'm an archaeologist by training, so I'm at the University of Illinois if you ever need to find me professionally. But we are also going to be posting a link to the Discord server if you would like to join us or get in touch with us otherwise there. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Bill to introduce himself.
Oh, hi. If you guys can hear me okay, that's good. My name's Bill Farley. I'm an associate professor at Southern Connecticut State University, and I joined the AGC server about a little over a year ago, maybe 14 months ago, which I think makes me the newbie here out of the four of us still, even though I've been around for a little while. My sort of day job, I work on 17th century archaeology in southern New England, particularly in Connecticut. I do sort of local community archaeology. But in terms of ArchaeoGaming, I got interested in it, and that I run a YouTube channel called Video Game Archaeology, in which mostly use archaeology as a video games as a teaching tool for archaeology, but also looking at intersections of archaeogaming more broadly. So that's me.
Throw it at
Sweet.
somebody, Bill.
Yeah. Oh, I'll throw it to Anna.
Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me too. Hi everybody. I'm Anna Kuhn. I go by Short Round online, and in real life, I'm a pre-contact archaeologist specializing in stone tool analysis, coming to you from Eastern Washington, where it is 4:30 in the morning. It's very fun here. Also, I'm a longtime gamer as well, and I'm the secretary of the Association for Washington Archaeology and a host on the Digging to the Other Side podcast. And I dabble in a bunch of side things, but one of my biggest side things is being a moderator and an organizer on the Archeo Gaming Collective and working with these wonderful people on the Archeo Gaming conference that we run every year. So that's me. And then I'm going to throw it to Rihanna.
Hey everyone, my name's Rihanna. I am located in Florida, hence everyone else is wearing sweaters and I'm in a tank top. So I'm an archaeologist. I work in an industry called cultural resource management. So basically in the United States, if you're using government land or government funding, they send archaeologists in first to make sure that you're not going to be developing anything on top of something that we might consider significant to our shared cultural heritage. So that's my day job. Outside of my day job, I still do archaeology. I'm part of the board of directors for the Society for Georgia Archaeology, the state in the US, not the country. And as part of that, I do outreach and social media. And because of my marketing and social media background, I also help out with that as part of the Archeo Gaming Collective and for multiplay. So I love to put on my little marketing hat and make Canva Pro is my best friend at this point. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, guys. feel free just in general to drop any questions in the chat that you guys have at any point. I see that you guys have been already doing that for some of the other presentations, but just confirmation to please do that for us as well. That way we can sort of make sure we cover everybody's topics of interest, even though we also will do questions, of course. So just really briefly, I broadly and loosely just referred to ArchaeoGaming as the intersection of archaeology and video games, which is super broad, obviously. And I know that the presentation before us, which was great, was also about ArchaeoGaming. So I guess I just want to open it up for our panel to say that we're going to sort of provide a broad team definition of ArchaeoGaming, and I just want to ask the rest of you guys if there's anything you would specify or add to that or narrow it down from this intersection of archaeology and gaming, and then what does that actually mean when we do it as both archaeologists and gamers, or maybe just one or the other?
I wrote a tiny little like 2 sentence definition
Go for it.
when we talked about this in the Discord like 5 minutes ago. So here's mine. This is mine. It's 2 sentences. What I wrote, like at its most basic, like right, that studying the intersection of archaeology and games, which Christiana you were just going over, is such a broad definition as to be kind of like almost meaningless, right? So it actually can be, I think it's an umbrella term that captures a lot of different approaches to this. So I think one thing it can be is like media criticism of archaeology and ancient places, media criticism of archaeology and different kinds of media, but especially games, but also ancient places as they're represented in media. It can be like an application of the archaeological method and theory to the analysis of games. So trying to find a way to take the skills and abilities we have in archaeology and how can we apply that to games analysis. And it can also be like a pedagogical tool for teaching about archaeology, which a lot of people are using it for in really cool ways. So those are my ones, but there's more than that if you guys have anything to add, I think.
No, I think that covered it really well. And like I'm one of the ones who uses ArchaeoGaming for teaching and public outreach and education. And when I was teaching in grad school, I one of the major things I used it for was helping students with aphantasia, because I have aphantasia, which means I can't visualize things in my head. And when teaching classes about prehistory, it's a really great tool to help students be able to visualize what they're learning about too. That's one way to use it.
I think
Yeah, I think
one of the. Go ahead, Ree.
Oh, sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
like, I was gonna say, yeah, I think for me, ArchaeoGaming is an educational outlet. It's a way to reach a general public because, a lot of people, or I guess like from in my perspective and experience, a lot of the public they see archaeology as something so outlandish that they'll never be able to touch it. And so I view ArchaeoGaming as a way to kind of bring them in and show like, no, it touches everything, like pretty much anything you encompass on your daily life has some tendril, some connection to the study of historical individual, place, culture, just the landscape that you're in itself can be archaeological in some way. So I kind of like it as just a one aspect that we can do to help educate the public on what archaeology is. And gaming, I think, is one of the best mediums out there to do it.
That's a really good point to mention.
I think one of the points that Anna made me think about one of the other things that we wanted to be sure to talk about with you all, which is why we first saw a need for an online community like this. So it's kind of an interesting space that we've developed in that it's pretty equally professional and just for fun. So I think that is something that makes our particular Discord server a really fun space. And if you're interested, I did just put a link to our Discord server invite in the chat. So please join us if this at all interests you. But why did we feel the need to create this kind of space in the first place? I think one of those things is not only related to, but definitely related to what Anna mentioned about accessibility for students that have aphantasia and similar kinds of situations. We really realized during summer 2020 when the Discord server was first founded, none of you will have forgotten that we were all in lockdown. And none of us could, like I mentioned earlier, none of us could go to the field that summer. None of us were going to conferences. There was no way for us to professionally or for fun, frankly, we were all stuck at home, interact with people that have these kind of similar interests as us. But what does that mean for ArchaeoGaming specifically, right? Like a lot of these online sort of groups popped up when none of us could go anywhere or see anyone. But for ArchaeoGaming, I think one of the things that I want to say is that it has improved accessibility for archaeologists in general vastly. So not only can we use archaeology as sort of an outreach tool, as an educational tool is what sort of jumps out to me here in terms of the accessibility aspect, because I think a lot of us have figured out in the last few years that actually, please ignore my cat's ears in the video, or love them, he likes that too, um, is that we can actually use archaeogaming to teach real field methods and real practices that we are, that we focus on as archaeologists. And that doesn't only have to happen in the classroom or in the field, right? It can also happen in these online spaces. So that's one of the things that I really value about the Discord space and having an online presence. And so I just wanted to sort of open that topic up for us all to talk about as well.
Yeah, well, so like as I was saying before, I used to teach when I was in grad school, and during the time I was in grad school, that was the start of the pandemic, and that was the start of the Archeo Gaming Collective. And one of something that we all struggle with as archaeologists is trying to figure out really good tools for public outreach and getting that information out to the public, getting our data and just the field of archaeology out to the public, and how to engage with the public on what we do and what we really do, right? Not like the Indiana Jones crap. And so stumbling across this community, I not only found a tool that could help me connect with students and also help them practice what we're learning in classes, but also I found something that could help with public outreach, like Rihanna was saying too. And so in addition to finding a really great community of fellow-minded archaeologists that have an interest outside of archaeology, right? We all like video games as well, and that was something that I was having trouble finding locally, is archaeologists that had the same interest as I did outside of what we did at work. I also found people that helped push me with regards to public outreach and education and even just public speaking, because we all collaborate on so many different projects like this one. And it really pushes me to get more involved in the community.
Yeah, I was just going to add, like, I think one of the ways that this really creates outreach is, and you guys have already sort of touched on this, is by really broadening the definition of what archaeology can even be, which allows people to
Right.
engage with archaeology in new and interesting ways. So just some of the things people are doing, I'm thinking about like some of our friends from the server, like Archeo Plays. They're doing like a video, YouTube videos about using Minecraft as a way to like recreate archaeological sites, and such a spatial thing. Minecraft, it's sort of perfect for that. Or Florence Smith Nichols has been doing work in Elden Ring, and like looking at ways you can analyze space and place, right? Obviously, the focus of today, within that game, and just treating it like just treating it like the real world, right? How would we approach the way we think about space and place in the real world? Let's just do that in games. This really broadens the definition of what games are, and they're ways that you can engage with archaeology remotely, right? Just on the theme we've just been talking about. You do not need to actually be able to get on an airplane, fly halfway across the world, right? It allows people of all abilities and all socioeconomic statuses, as long as you've got an internet connection, right? Which is a limiting factor for some, but it's certainly a lot less limiting than those other things. You can do archaeology, you can engage with archaeology, and that's really exciting.
I think I wanna put you on the spot, Bill. I wanna ask you about something that you mentioned, which is participating in archaeology and what archaeology involves and what is included in that word, right? So we like to think about archaeogaming as a subdiscipline or subset of archaeology, but it's also a subdiscipline or subset of game studies, right?
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that we run into a lot, where sort of Anna mentioned interests and hobbies outside archaeology, and Bill mentioned this actually is included in what archaeology covers. So what I want to ask now is like, is game studies and is archaeogaming taken seriously in the rest of our profession? Because I think that that's something that comes up a lot as a topic of discussion, and why there is not a lot of existing game studies in archaeology. Because one of the reasons I think, and I'm just going to go ahead and spoil this part for our listeners here. The reason we made a Discord community here is because ArchaeoGaming doesn't have a home anywhere else, right? Like it doesn't have a professional organization. It's pretty new, right? As a field, a lot of game studies in general, especially with these cultural aspects, are pretty new as fields. And so I was just wondering if we could all talk for a minute about sort of the perception of archaeogaming in archaeology in general.
Hmm. I know that was sort of aimed at me, but I also spoke last, so I don't know if either of you guys want to jump in.
I mean, I can jump in. I definitely have
Yeah.
some opinions.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I guess I would want to definitely say, like, in the archaeological realm, it's very much a slow going process to try and enter and introduce the concept of archaeogaming to other archaeologists that have, they're old white men that don't want to study anything else, I guess, is basically what I've been encountering. But I would say, in terms of game studies, it's probably been the most welcoming. I think it's kind of like we kind of like, especially with multiplay, like I kind of entered in it and I was just like, hey, I study archaeology, but I also love the intersection of gaming. And they were just like, yes, please bring that here. We want to see more of that. So I mean, yeah, any discussion that I've had with game studies, they've been, welcoming us with open arms. But in terms of like our own archaeological discipline, we have been able, I guess I don't want to spoil anything, but we have been able to host sessions in academic conferences and stuff, and they were pretty popular. I have been pretty happy about the turnout that we've had at these events. So I do want to say that the tide is turning, and I think, a lot of people just didn't know that this was a topic that they could study. So I think now that we've shown them, like, hey, you can nerd out about games and archaeology just as much as any other type of archaeology in an academic sense, or even not. Like, you can just have just an avid interest and want to be able to study this topic, and there's a place for you. So
yeah,
that's my opinion.
And I feel like it's been a trend of starting with the ArchaeoGaming conference that we had in 2020. We've been branching out from there, right? We've been taking it to bigger national archaeological conferences and getting a really cool reception, like Rihanna said. And like, it started with our conference. It started with the ArchaeoGaming conference, or ArchaeCon, right? And one of the biggest things with that was to open our conference up to non-professionals. And it's so important that we encourage students and non-professionals, even those outside of archaeology, to participate in our conference. It gives people a foot in the door in a big way to doing public outreach and trying their hand at public speaking and teaching others about something that they love, and getting to talk to people about something fun that you're interested in with an educational twist. And we hope to do that. We hope that this kind of thing might encourage non-professionals to become professionals and maybe even become archaeologists someday. And it's important to show students and people outside of our field that other voices matter and other perspectives matter, and that we can all learn something from them, and we're willing to learn something from them. And ArchaeCon will always be open to those outside of archaeology, and we hope that more archaeological conferences learn from this. And it's really cool to see. And I mean, we're even branching out to the Society for American Archaeology next year.
Yeah, let's talk about all our outreach stuff.
Yeah,
Unless you were going to talk about something just adjacent to that, Bill.
no, it's kind of both, right? So the only thing I'll add to that was I've been really surprised. What I have found is that AGC and the first of all, it's been a great place to make all these connections with all these different folks, which is really pushed out from there. But I've been finding that sort of professional organizations have been initially reluctant, but then surprisingly open when we get in the door. So AGC gives us a little bit of legitimacy to sort of bust the door down and get in. So a good example, as Anna knows, like last week, the state archaeologist of Connecticut runs this radio show, and she asked me if I would do a guest episode for her because she couldn't do it one week. This was just like a couple of weeks ago. And I asked Anna and another friend of ours from the server, Mike Zimmerman, to join me on the show. And when I got there, I sat down to the studio and I'm talking to the guy who's like the radio host dude who runs the whole radio. And he was really skeptical. He was like, I don't know what this is. I think this is going to be weird. I think it's going to be tough to hold the audience's attention. I'll jump in if you need to do something. And then the episode went fantastic. And he's given us, he's been telling us, he's getting all this feedback that, oh, it was, people are telling us it was their favorite episode ever. It was so much fun. It was so interesting. Never thought of things that way. So it's, you just need something to let you get in the door, and AGC gives us that power to do that. And but I think it's important that we maintain AGC even after we get widespread acceptance, which I think is inevitable at this point, probably. So something to think about. How do we maintain both those things? This isn't just a tool to get in the door. We want it to be something that's long term too.
Yeah.
I see that Lisa asked a question in the chat, but I'm going to take our last couple of minutes to plug all of the outreach things that we're doing because we want everyone to come. And then we'll definitely answer questions. So we obviously have been talking a lot about the online conference that we do through our Discord server every year. I posted a link to our YouTube channel where all of the talks for those conferences get uploaded when we're finished. So we now have 3 years worth of talks on there, which is pretty amazing. So we're excited about that. Please feel free to check them out. We also, Anna mentioned this a little bit, we are expanding our presentations to professional organizations, which is really exciting. So part of that is to try to help sort of establish our legitimacy in the field. We haven't had any resistance to conference sessions about this so far. So this year we in the past, last year, presented a ArchaeoGaming Collective sponsored session at the Society for Historical Archaeology meeting. We will be doing that again this year and also running a session at the Society for American Archaeology meeting. So if that is of academic interest to anybody else on here that may be an archaeologist, but we don't have you in the collective yet, please feel free to come tell us hi at those conferences. We would love to chat. We also do a lot of sort of, I was going to say smaller scale, but in comparison to an in-person conference, are they really online events like this? So we do a lot of things online with smaller sets of our collective, sort of like we're doing today. So we advertise those both through our server and our Twitter account, but also through Multiplay's Discord server a lot of the time. So if you're already hooked up with Multiplay, you can usually find us through there. And am I missing anything, you guys? What are we working on right now?
I mean, with Multiplay, we've got some publications in the work too.
Yes.
We're also diving into the written sphere.
So that's been pretty fun to sort of figure out. We're kind of trying to solidify ArchaeoGaming as a more professional sort of field, right? Is that we're trying to establish ourselves as not just archaeology or not just game studies, but this intersection of fields that is its own is a field in its own right, right? Like we want to be able to say, hey, we're studying archaeogaming, we're working on these projects, and they're valid, and we want to be able to share them with other people. So
yeah, and like you were saying too, Christiana, like establish our legitimacy, but also to open the door and keep it open so that future researchers are able to pursue this and be taken seriously too, right? So that's another goal of ours, I feel like.
Yes. Anybody have anything else to add before we start to switch over to questions? Okay, great. Lisa, I don't know if you want to take over for questions or if I should read the one that you posted in the chat out loud or if you have a preference.
I don't mind. I might as well ask my question.
Okay.
It took me ages to like word it properly, so hopefully it sounds fine. But yeah, so because these are so heavily linked with archaeology, which is like a very, or at least in my opinion, it's like it's a proper topic. It's not just like media studies. You know, people know what it is and think it's a good thing. So do you think that makes it easier for you guys to sort of be seen as like valid, when you're looking at video games in this sort of respects, or do you think it sort of adds to the challenge because you're bringing something new to a very, what I can only assume is like a very hard hard like defined topic?
I wonder if we'll
Anybody
get
want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, I think in some ways, because, you know, in terms of media studies, archaeologists can kind of be considered subject matter experts, as much as my imposter syndrome wants to say I'm not. I do have the degrees and I do have like almost a decade of experience now, so I could consider myself a subject matter expert in archaeology. And therefore, if I see aspects of a historical individual or location or culture depicted in games, I feel like for the most part, I would semi-trust my own opinion on how to explain this or define it or explore it with the public. So I definitely think in terms of media studies, we definitely kind of have a subject matter expert visage to us. I don't know. I'm trying to I'm losing the word on how to, but on the opposite side, in terms of trying to make a place for us in archaeology, we're trying to present ourselves as subject matter experts of gaming on the opposite side too. So it's like we're trying to make, ingratiate ourselves on both sides as subject matters on two different topics. So it can be difficult, but it can also, it's definitely something that's interesting to try.
I'm just seeing the chat. Sorry, we're joking in the chat.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna make you answer that, Bill, because it uses the phrase Elden Ring.
Oh, we've got an Elden Ring question.
The phrase.
Yeah.
I'll read the question. I'll read the question for you, Bill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What's it say?
It says, I'm fascinated by Elden Ring's archaeology and historicity. Really makes the game rich and haunting. What thoughts might you have about archaeology in sci-fi spaces and places? I'm thinking of No Man's Sky specifically, a game that thrives on collecting relics, carving languages, and carving into planetoids. How would real arcs, not the Indiana Joneses, problematize the procedural?
So there's somebody already doing a little bit of work on this. First of all, Elden Ring, great subject for archaeology. I agree, and I've done some stuff on Elden Ring as well, some videos on Elden Ring on my YouTube channel. But No Man's Sky, of course. A couple of months ago, I was helping out with SASA, another great the Save Ancient Studies Alliance, who also do some ArchaeoGaming stuff, and they hosted Andrew Reinhard, the godfather of ArchaeoGaming, whatever, the guy who wrote the book. He wrote the textbook, and his work actually right now is largely focused on No Man's Sky and sort of this exact thing that you bring up, right? He's like looking at how the game is structured around extraction and colonialism, right? Literally, you're colonizing other planets. They're empty planets. They don't have sentient aliens on them. I don't think I've ever actually played No Man's Sky. But you're and yeah, exactly, problematizing that, but also thinking methodologically about how we might actually look at those sorts of activities within a video game. So I think sci-fi has a lot of potential. There's a lot of rich potential in sci-fi as a place where we can explore archaeology, because sci-fi is always a genre that's always talking about real world issues, right? Sci-fi by its nature is usually thematically exploring something real in the world. So many sci-fis are looking at things that archaeologists are already interested in, like imperialism, like colonialism, like diaspora. I don't know, things that archaeologists are already really invested in studying. It seems a natural connection to me. That's what I got.
I see you both ladies sort of responded to this next question, but I'm gonna frame it for you and then you're gonna answer it. So this next question says, I have a question which is more of a nudge really, but how do games get archaeology wrong or indeed devalue it, or do they? And I'm going to echo Anna's comment that says, "Do you have 10 hours?" Because a lot of what we do on the ArchaeoGaming server is talk about how archaeology is portrayed in games and how it's portrayed incorrectly. And so the way that I'm going to frame it for Anna and Ree to answer is that I'm going to say one of the things that is the worst in terms of how archaeology is presented in games is archaeology equals looting and archaeology
Mm,
equals colonialism. So then I'm going
yeah.
to go ahead and let Anna and Ree take it from there.
Way to take the easy answer on that. That's the major thing we have an issue with how archaeology is presented in games. Talking about the main criminals, you've got Indiana Jones. He's got some video games. Lara Croft is a big one. Nathan Drake is a big one. And then there's other ones out there that are less smaller names, gaming celebrities out there that are still practicing it very wrong and looting just about everything they can find. um, and collectibles, right? Collectibles are often just an aspect of looting, but like trying to think of other ways video games get it wrong is the practice of how archaeology is done. I mean, I was playing archaeology VR. I think last year. They have explosives in that game. That's what begins the archaeology process. And I'm thinking of like my 6 years in archaeology, and it's like I don't remember using explosives. So like there's that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I just want to find a game where they don't try to include some sort of supernatural element when it comes to finding artifacts from the past. I feel like
Sure. Yeah.
I love the Uncharted series. I love to replay them. But every single time they try to they're on the on the hunt for whatever long lost treasure they're seeking, and then they add some supernatural element to it, which this isn't just from gaming either. This is in all sorts of media that you find where there has to be, it can't just be finding out more information of lived experiences of the past. Like the treasure can't be enough if it's just an object. They have to make it, you know, supernatural element. They have to bring some sort of like fantastical sense to it, and that annoys the crap out of me.
Yeah, another
Yeah.
one is archaeology equals aliens.
Yes.
It doesn't?
Or ghosts. Ghosts is a good one too.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other one is just repatriation, right? There isn't enough of that. A quest can lead you to find some really cool artifact, and then at the end of the day, it just appears in the player home, right? Or it just gets sold or whatever, what have you. You get to use it as a weapon or whatever, and there's no giving back or giving it, handing it over to the people who rightfully should own that object.
Yeah, the 10-second edition, I'd make that a different kind of game that does this too, are like the 4X games, which are, sort of strategy games from a different angle. So Civilization being probably the best example, a game series that I've loved for many, many years. But Civilization, so that's not so much representing archaeology, but representing sort of archaeological knowledge in a way that's definitely problematic, which is just in an intensely Eurocentric way. This idea that we're going to take all the cultures of the world and make them go through a technology tree that is just the technology tree of that you learned about in your AP European history class in high school or whatever. So that would be another addition I'd add to that as a possible.
Yeah. The word primitive is used way too much. We don't use that in our field.
Yeah.
So
We could talk about this all day, I promise. I do see it's almost 7 o'clock already on my time. I know it's quite a bit later for you all over there. So I just want to thank everybody for having us. And please, we would love to continue this discussion in our server. If anybody wants me to post the invite link for the Discord server again, we are more than happy to do that. And thanks again, Lisa. And we're happy to continue this chat anytime. Thank you all so much.
and we have a Twitter, ArchaeoGaming Co. I think it is. So follow us on Twitter too.
Yeah. And the YouTube channel where you can see talks from everybody here and many more of our good friends.
Yes, I was gonna say most of the questions that were asked, I feel like they would have a good time watching all the videos on our YouTube channel, because I think we've touched Elder Scrolls, we've touched Elden Ring, we've touched what is a bad representation in gaming. So if you have any interest whatsoever in learning more about it, I would say definitely go check out the YouTube channel.
Great, thank you so much, guys. That was really, really interesting. And I have actually just subscribed to the YouTube channel, and I will be watching all the videos. But no,